Sylvain, congratulations on your Oscar nomination for Arrival as Best Sound Editing. How did it feel when you got the news you'd been nominated?
Oh, my goodness, it's pretty exciting. And of course, it's early in the morning. I live on the East Coast in Montreal, so it was like 8 o'clock. We had a bottle of champagne, in fact, in the studio. So it was pretty cool, pretty exciting. It's my first nomination. So yeah, I mean, just something that you cannot even, it takes time even to realize that it's real.
Well, congratulations again. And if it makes you feel any better, my morning on the West Coast was even earlier on nomination day. And I did not have a bottle of champagne provided for me that.
I wish you could next time.
Next time, yes. So let's talk a little bit about your role on Arrival. So often people ask, what are the differences between sound editing and sound mixing? Tell us what a sound editor does, in particular on a film like Arrival.
It's basically sound editing is if you take an image, like if you're like the composer, and when you reach the mixing stage, it's like interpretation of the composition. So this is one of the first thing people can relate on. And basically, you start the sound editing when the picture editing is done, and then so you create all the soundscape, the sounds element that were not there during the sound editing period. And a film like Arrival, because it's a science fiction, needs a lot of sound design and a lot of sound IDs, because it's not like a traditional film, like a naturalistic film that can relate a lot on production sound that was recorded on the set. And a film like Arrival, everything has to be done in a way. So it's an enormous stage of work, an enormous concept of design, and bring also the film to, I would say, at a level where the sounds become really a part of the film, as a character, as a vibe, as a narration too. Yeah.
Right, absolutely. What's interesting about this film in particular, apart from other science fiction films, is that there is a natural quality to a feeling of realism, shall we say, to the aesthetic of it. So how did that affect your work?
That was the goal. That was the main goal. That was the first ideas that came out with Danny, that we wanted to do an organic science fiction sound. We didn't want to go into kind of electronic sort of sound. We wanted to feel that the sound came really natural. And let's say like the great work by Dave Whitehead and Mitchell Child as a sound designer for the heptapod vocals. All the heptapod vocals were made of realistic sound that were really, of course, really processed and everything. They have to be really sacred, like if you talk to God, basically. And on another level, all the sound of the movement of the shell, the vessel is made of rocks and ice. There is no engine, there is no motor. When the vessel moves, it's like the mountains moving. And that was a lot on the shoulders of Olivier Calvert, my colleague at the studio and the sound designer. So we really build something that have to become to a natural sound. There is no electronic. It's coming from an old age. For me, Arrival is also, it's like the heptapods are coming from 3,000 years ahead, but in fact, they also it's like a very ancient civilization in a way, that have a certain level of intelligence that they can go through time. But in fact, they look really like the Stone Age in some ways. So it's sort of all this related, yeah.
I kept thinking of like giant squids as I was watching it.
Yeah, of course. They're like they're animals, but with a superiority of language and intelligence. But they're like animals, and their vessel is a rock that disappear into dust, into time. Mm-hmm. They're kind of so it's yeah.
I want to talk a bit more about the alien language, because I mean that's what the movie is all about, is communication between us and them, and so it's crucial that it be convincing. Can you talk a bit more about that?
Yeah, I think like I said, the language was really on the shoulders of Dave Whitehead and Mitchell Child. And Dave and Michelle really start the creation of the language, as it had to be a language, had to be rhythmically, harmonically, something that fit like a language. It's not only to put sound all over the place and make the things kind of cool. It's more than that. It is something that they had to take a reflection on structure of how those animals speak, and of course had to become from something that it's a complex, unknown way. It's so complex that the humans have to go back to their writing to talk to them, because the sound of the heptapods is way too complex in a way for the scientist, for Louise, to understand. So that's why she go back to writing, and this is the way they're able to talk. It's through writing instead of sound. Yeah.
Of course, there is a lot of dialogue in this movie as well, and some of it is production sound that you get. So can you talk a little bit about the challenges of that aspect of your job?
Of course, a film like that, the production sound is very difficult to get because it's a science fiction film. So there's a lot of challenge. Of course, all the naturalistic scene, if I can say, into the base, for instance, all the dialogues between the military are 19%. We were able to keep the natural production sound made by Claude Lahaye, who is nominated with me at the BAFTA and nominated also at the Oscar with Bernard. So fortunately, Claude is a very experienced production recordist, so he's the best in Quebec, and so we were able to get material from that. One of the challenge also was all the communication through devices, like the helicopter scene, for instance, when they talk. This is production sound also. It was a great achievement that we were able to get that sound in the helicopter. To the base, all the communication between the hazmat suit, the base, all that was, a lot of them were recorded in ADR, even if we kept some of them from the production sound. So all that was a huge challenge, because we had to redo a lot of those lines through a very complex system of basically, maybe I can go on that, maybe it will not take too much time, but it was like we were sending every line of ADR, of post-synchronization line, through a full-range speaker. The full-range speaker was output a signal to a transmitter, the transmitter, walkie-talkie transmitter, that was sending the signal to a receiver in another room. So the receiver was outputting the voices into a microphone, and the microphone was recording the voices. So the hazmat suit communication is really based on a very natural walkie-talkie conversation. And I think that, so that was a huge challenge technically, and also very exciting to do. But yeah, it was a huge challenge.
It's something that I guess people watching movies probably don't realize the extensive amount of work that has to go into making this sound realistic, and as if it's naturally coming from the mouths and the environment. You know, otherwise it can come across rather artificial if not done properly.
Yeah, it's in a film like that, there's a lot of recording and a lot of tracks, and when you come to the mix, the level are so dense. I just can talk also about the crowds in the film. With all the crowds in the camp are coming from very natural crowd sound, instead of going too much on walla and ADR as we do sometimes. We did, but of course we need to do that. But like on the bass, we were able to grab many natural crowd sound, and and also I will say there's one of the key elements in the film is that one of the goal also was to try to, as I said before, sound is a character, sound is emotion, sound is a part of the narration, and we needed to follow the film as it was a vibe that surrounded, for me, was a vibe that surrounded Louise, kind of a vertigo. She's in between time. She's not comfortable, almost. She's not really comfortable where she is at home. She's not comfortable with the military at all. She's not part of them. And the sound is kind of a really moody surrounding around her. And it was the goal also to have something a bit kind of like a trippy vibe around her. That is not something there's a sort of positive thing around that, but she still have to deal with that. And I think the sound was to go with her, share that moment with her.
That's interesting, thinking about it from the perspective of this character, you know, not just what would sound realistic in the moment, but thinking about it thematically in a sense.
Yeah, of course. Like just a scene that for me talks a lot, and for what you just said, and I just said before, is that when the first time she go to the shell, she's going out of the base, and with Bernard in the mixing room, we did the fantastic. I really like the Bernard work on that. We did a roll off. The frequencies disappear into the hazmat, and we going into the shell to her point of view. It's like she had to live all the sounds. All of a sudden, the helicopters, the trucks, the footsteps around her are really inside the hazmat. So it's kind of it's her film. It's a science fiction film, but talk about a very simple story of a lonely woman who will face one of the most biggest challenges of life. Is that how can you have a child and knowing that he will die later on? So which is a fantastic challenge, and it's yeah, I'm really proud of that, and I'm really proud of Denis, how he did the film about following her and not something else. The film is about a woman and more than all what's happened in the world. And so it's a kind of two things at the same time. So have a big science fiction film about a world situation, but it remains on you follow a single lady. So.
Right. I wonder if you could talk a bit more about working with Villeneuve. You've worked together before,
yeah,
if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So what is that collaboration like?
You know, it's in movies or in so many, you know, fields of life, like long collaboration. Sometimes you get to a point where you do not need to talk much. It's like being two players on the sport field. You're in your game and you don't need to talk much in a way. You need to be there, whatever. It's kind of so yeah, Denis and I, we started to do, was in 1996 for a short film called Cosmos. It was into a feature in Quebec. We're both from Montreal, we both are from Quebec. And we did films throughout the years until Denis went to the States. In 2011, I think he did his first with Prisoners or Enemy, if I might be wrong for the dates. But basically, I did like a few projects with him since 1996. So we're old friends. We have a lot of friends in commons. And we both, in a way, came from the same background, sort of. We both really love cinema, and I think we know each other quite well, even if we don't see each other that much, because Denis is an international star now, so it's tough to catch. He's all over the place, but no, it's coming from an old time relationship when we grew up together in the film business. Yeah.
And what got you into doing sound editing? What attracted you to that specific field of study?
It's interesting. I think I was a really fan lover since I was very, very young. But at the same time, inside movies, I was really fan of sound and sound design. Not only sound as the sound, and not only music, but it was how can you construct an abstract world, a world of where the door is open for dream, and cinema and dream are really close. There's so much film that dreams is around. In a way, Arrival with the flash forward and all that really remind the concept of the dream. She dreamed quite often, Louise, in the film, in fact. So I came back from this desire of doing that in life to living in how can I say, just to write for dreams, in fact. And dreams, sound is really close to abstraction. And I was really touched with early films when I was a kid with Sergio Leone's film, like Ennio Morricone was really build a soundscape, mixing music with sound with Clint Eastwood and Lee Van Cleef. All those sound, all those environment really touched me. And then I went through many films, touched my bottom of my heart really much, like Das Boat in 81 and Eraserhead. And then it starts with so many world of imagination. For me, sound is my goodness, is a field of imagination that you cannot, there's no boundaries for that. There's no ending.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations again on the nomination, and thank you so much for taking the time to talk. It was a pleasure.
Thanks to you. All right.
Have a good one.